Greetings, everyone. Robert Craig, just an old man reading from his Bible. I am the old man. This is the Bible I read from right here, the Holy Bible, King James Version. Now we are in John's Gospel and we have reached chapter 2. This, like the other three Gospels, is the story of how Jesus came to minister to the nation of Israel in his earthly ministry. And I think we showed that. One caveat I should mention, and that is that these four Gospels here are not church ground, but they picture the earthly ministry of Christ. And Paul mentions this, Romans chapter 15, verse 8. Now I say that Jesus Christ was, so you got to really pay attention to the conjugation of the verb to be in these statements. Jesus Christ was a minister of the circumcision for the truth of God to confirm the promises made unto the fathers. Okay, that kind of gives you the general idea. There's more to it, but that was the fulfillment of prophecy. Was when he came into the world. Now, let's pick right up here in chapter 2, verse 1. And I suppose this is probably the day after these, let's see. Chapter 1, verse 35 said it was the next day, that is, after John testified of what he saw, that is, the Spirit coming down and abiding on Jesus. The next day he gathered these two disciples, but continuing on, I think in that same sequence, verse 1 of chapter 2, and the third day there was a marriage in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. And both Jesus was called and his disciples to the marriage. So you see there, he's got a few disciples already, probably less than 12, although it doesn't specify there. But from the record of the scripture, we've seen he's gathered a handful of men already. Verse 3, and when they wanted wine, see, now that's an old English usage there of the word want. It means that you don't have something or you're short on something. Like a little kid misbehaving, someone would say, wants manners. But it talks about a lack. When they wanted wine, the mother of Jesus saith unto them, they have no wine. And she said this to Jesus. The mother of Jesus saith unto him, they have no wine. Jesus saith unto her, woman, what have I to do with thee? Mine hour is not yet come. His mother saith unto the servants, whatsoever he saith unto you, do it. And there were set there 6 water pots of stone, after the manner of the purifying of the Jews, containing 2 or 3 firkins apiece. Now, near as I've been able to determine, a firkin is close to 10 gallons. So they're a little unspecific here. 6 water pots, and each one of them holds 20 or 30 gallons. That's a lot. Jesus saith unto them, fill the water pots with water. And they filled them up to the brim. And he saith unto them, draw out now, and bear unto the governor of the feast. That would be like the man who's in charge of this reception party. He's the host, or the MC, you might call him. And they bare it. When the ruler of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, and knew not whence it was, but the servants which drew the water knew, the governor of the feast called the bridegroom, and saith unto him, Every man at the beginning doth set forth good wine, and when men have well drunk, then that which is worse. But thou hast kept the good wine until now. Now that's kind of describing how when people began to drink and celebrate, their palate for the quality of the wine will be acutely aware. But give them a few drinks, and it's all the same. Verse 11 says, "This beginning of miracles did Jesus in Cana of Galilee, and manifested forth his glory, and his disciples believed on him." That gives us a hint about how the Jewish mind worked in that day. Was that they didn't really work much by faith. They tended to believe things when there were signs and wonders accompanying. Take a little side trip here to 1 Corinthians when Paul says something describing the gospel that he is preaching. And his gospel is a gospel that no one had ever heard back during the earthly ministry of Christ, because it's based upon something that hadn't happened yet, his death and his resurrection. And he says, let's just go to chapter 1, verse 21. "For after that, in the wisdom of God, the world by wisdom knew not God, it pleased God by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe." Verse 22, "For the Jews require a sign, and the Greeks seek after wisdom. But we preach Christ crucified, unto the Jews a stumbling block, and unto the Greeks foolishness. But unto them which are called, both Jews and Greeks." This is what the gospel means to us believers. Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. Now, this quote right here from 1 Corinthians is far into the future yet from the viewpoint of this point where the wedding in Cana took place. But it describes the mindset of the Jew of that time. And that's why when his disciples saw this beginning of miracles, the first miracle he did, they really latched on to him and bonded to him as disciples. We're ready to believe now. Verse 12, "After this, he went down to Capernaum, he and his mother and his brethren and his disciples, and they continued there not many days." That's a little bit vague, isn't it? Verse 13, "And the Jews' Passover was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem." That's another thing about the Jewish mindset, I think, is the point of view is that no matter what direction you come from, when you go to Jerusalem, you're going up, and you're going down when you go away. It's just part of it. Verse 15, "And when he," verse 14. He had gone up to Jerusalem, verse 14, "and found in the temple those that sold oxen and sheep and doves, and the changers of money sitting." Now there's a little note here. People have studied this out. Why were there money changers? There was supposed to be a place where the offerings of money was cast in. And people who came from afar off that couldn't bring the tithe of their produce, that wouldn't keep that long, they would change it to money and then carry the money to Jerusalem and donate it. But look at it this way. What would make the biggest noise and get you the most notice? If you put a $100 bill in the plate, or if you had the bank break it down into rolls of pennies and then opened all the penny rolls and just dump in a bushel of pennies all at once. What's going to get you the most attention? And of course, the money changers were a lot like these coin counters you see at Walmart. They charged a certain percentage. They made a profit by doing this. And anyways, these people there. They're buying and selling offerings and changing money, and they're selling animals for sacrifice. And when he had made a scourge of small cords, in other words, he made a little whip that had bite. He made a scourge of small cords, and he drove them all out of the temple, and the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the changers' money, and overthrew the tables, and said unto them that sold doves, Take these things hence. Make not my Father's house an house of merchandise. And his disciples remembered that it was written, The zeal of thine house hath eaten me up. Then answered the Jews and said unto him, What sign showest thou unto us, seeing that thou doest these things? Jesus answered and said unto them, Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. Then said the Jews, 46 years was this temple in building, and wilt thou rear it up in 3 days? But he spake of the temple of his body. When therefore he was risen from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this unto them, and believed the scripture and the word which Jesus had said. See, that's another reminder that John is looking back into the fairly recent past. He's looking at all this in retrospect. This gospel is not a running account of these events. The gospels were written afterward. Verse 23, Now, when he was in Jerusalem at the Passover, in the feast day, many believed in his name when they saw the miracles which he did. Remember what Paul said about the way the Jewish mind worked. But Jesus did not commit himself unto them, because he knew all men, and needed not that any should testify of man, for he knew what was in man. Now, this looks like a really good place for a stopping point, because something different is dealt with when we get into chapter 3. And there's some very interesting points made there. For now, though, I'll just say, may the Lord bless this reading of his Holy Scripture. And next time, we'll get into that conversation with Nicodemus and John's retrospect on it once again. I hope you'll join me for that.